Hey everybody, this is Bob Golden, the president of the Colorado Society of Association Executives, commonly known as CSAE. And I'm here to host our third podcast, our podcast series called Best Minds in Associations. Today's topic is lessons from the trenches. And we're just super excited that we have Tony Milo with us today. Tony's the executive director of the Colorado Contractors Association. He's been with the CCA, we'll call it, since April of 2005, and CCA represents the state's contractors who perform the vast majority of Colorado's infrastructure projects, including highways, bridges, utility, and heavy construction. Pretty serious and important things in our world. CCA is a state chapter of the Associated General Contractors of America. Prior to joining CCA, Tony was the executive director of the Michigan Road Builders Association and has over 20 years of experience representing infrastructure, construction, industry through the work of major trade associations. Tony earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in International Relations from James Madison College in Michigan State University and has a Master's of Management degree from Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I will tell you, Tony's just a great guy, and I'm just super honored to have Tony with us. So welcome, Tony. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Bob. It's great to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
We were just reminiscing about our background, and we have Michigan roots and Florida roots. And it's funny because I think I've probably been elbow to elbow with Tony down at the Capitol many times, and we never really talked about it. So it's good to connect. So Tony is many of you probably know Tony. He's quite a force in Colorado politics. Obviously, he runs an association that has a critical role in the state. But I will tell you that I can't come up with too many people I know that's more effective and more persuasive down at the Capitol than Tony Milo. And Tony, I don't do much of that anymore because I'm running a national organization, but I miss those days. How are you doing down there? And when is the legislature starting back up?
Well, thanks for your kind words, Bob. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so it's kind of another odd year. We had an odd session last year, with COVID, and this year is starting out strange as well. The legislature gavelled in their normal time mid-January and then gavelled out immediately and are planning to start up again this week, actually, coming into mid-February now. So the session will start in earnest again, I believe on the 11th.
Okay. Well, like I said, I miss parts of that, but I don't miss all of it. I can tell you that. So we're grateful. We're grateful that you're down there doing what you do on such critical areas. So Tony, I want to talk to you today about, obviously you have a lot of experience in association management, well-respected, a tremendous organization that you're the quarterback of right now. But we wanted you to share some of Tony's information and some of Tony's experiences and things that can help our listening audience through this podcast in growing and developing. I think we all bring certain things to the table, and certainly I know that you will too. So I kind of wanted to start with, maybe you could share with us today, what are some tips or some golden rules, if you will, that you've picked up during your career at CCA when working with a board or working with your staff or management team or the public or the legislator? What are just some tidbits that you'd like to share with us today?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share some of these things. And, as I think about them, so many of these golden rules, if you will, seem so simple and seem self-evident, but, they're worth repeating, and they're worth documenting. I think as association executives, the kinds of things that we need to do to, build that trust and build those relationships that are so necessary to our success. And I would say that the absolute number one golden rule is to be honest and always be honest. I think that the most important thing that we have, the most important collateral we have as association executives is, the relationships that we build. And those relationships, first and foremost, are built on trust. So the folks that we are working with, whether they are coalition partners or legislators or other stakeholders, they have to know that when you are speaking with them and when you are dealing with them, that you're dealing in good faith and that you're being 100% transparent and honest. And I think that's really the number one golden rule.
You know, Tony, my father used to always say, trust is an easy thing to gain, but when you lose it, it's almost impossible to get it back. And I remember early in my career, I was aggressive, and I don't think I purposely was dishonest, but I might have been the truth a little bit. And I think as I've grown a little bit older, you're spot on. The building of relationships and trust and operating in good faith is critical, particularly down at the Capitol, right?
Absolutely. Down at the Capitol, it is particularly important because, like you said, and that was a great point, what your dad said was very wise. You know, trust, it takes a long time to build and can be destroyed in minutes, really. You know, you can do 99% of 99% of the time you can be honest, but with one slip, you can lose the trust of folks, and it could take a long time to bring it back. And people listening may say, "Well, of course I'm always honest," but I think we all have to remember that all of us can get wrapped up in making our argument, right? Our association takes a position, and you start putting together, the reasons that others should believe in that position, and too often you see folks put things out that maybe just tell part of the story, so it's not being dishonest, but it's not sharing always 100% of the story. And I think that, we as association executives and as advocates have to remember that, those legislators are counting on us to give them all sides of the story.
Sure.
And be 100% transparent. And so that's, I think we have to go above and beyond in those regards.
Sure. No, those are excellent points, and something that's so very meaningful today. So, Tony, another thing we chatted briefly about earlier is the support of senior management like yourself or your volunteer members of the board, your leadership, your officers and directors, to get things accomplished, and how important that is. How could you share with us relative to some things that have come to mind for you over the years as it relates to your relationship with your team, and then possibly the relationship with your officers over the years that has just helped to move the needle for CCA?
Right. Sure. Yeah. I think, as association leaders, as association executives, we're servant leaders. Right. And I think we always have to remember that. And we have to have that servant leader mentality that, we are there to serve our board. And, sometimes the longer you're in these positions, the more that we can tend to feel that we know what's best for our association, or we know what's best for our industry. And we always have to remember, no matter how long we're in these jobs, that we have to listen to our boards, and listening is a lost art. And we have to continually work to be good listeners and really listen and understand to what each and every board member has to say, and work with them to build a consensus so that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. And then on the other side of that coin then is leading your staff. And again, you have to be a servant leader and be there as a coach and a mentor, and help the staff understand why the board came to the decision that they made, and how any particular decision or position that the board has taken, helps the industry, and how they as a staff can all, help so that we're all rowing that boat in the same direction. So you have to work. You have to really work both sides, the board side and the staff side, and be a good liaison between the two.
The term servant leader, I think it's overused because I think people don't really know what it means. And I think the definition that you just laid down is just so absolutely perfect. I remember a mentor of mine one time told me, he said, listen to yourself talk about the organization. And if you refer to the organization as my association, my directors, you know what I mean? And you hear
Yeah.
that so frequently. And it's so critical, as you just said, for us to remember. And I do it, quite frankly, once or twice a day. Because you're right. Oftentimes we think we know better. And then that's where, we have to come in and possibly persuade our leadership to consider another look. But and talk to me a little about, you use another key word that I noted is listening. Do you think listening is a lost art today?
It definitely is. I always thought in my 20 years plus doing this job, I always felt that the ability to listen and my ability to listen was one of the keys to my success. And
Nice.
if you're not able to listen to folks and hear them and understand what they're saying and where they're coming from, it's very difficult to make any progress at all, whether you're working with a board or a group of legislators or a staff. True active listening, having some empathy for what folks are saying and why they're saying it is just critically important. One of the other keys, I guess, if you will, to I think any association executive's success.
I remember early in my career when being down at the Capitol, and I was so offended when I would do my poorly scripted, probably poorly written presentation, and I would look up at the committee, and it would be like maybe one person was making eye contact with me every 10 seconds, and the others were doing something else. So I always felt like that listening piece down at the legislature, that'll challenge you as to whether or not you really think somebody's listening to you, right?
Absolutely. That is a feeling I think we all have had and experienced that
Yeah.
that we all have lived through. And again, I think it gets back to relationship building.
Sure.
And building those relationships with those legislators so that whether they look like they're listening or not during the legislative hearing, at some point in the process, you hope that you can have that trust in that relationship so that they will hear what you're saying and take that into account.
Yeah. So Tony, you've been in your position for a good amount of time, which is very admirable. You obviously have learned some lessons from the trenches, if you will, about working with new leadership. And it's we all go through this. Every year is a new adventure, and you get different personalities, different levels of intelligence, different commitment levels. So sometimes people with their own personal agendas. But share with us today, kind of how did you do it, right? How have you been able to stay at CCA for about 16 years now?
Yep.
And dealt with those new leadership that come in and out of the organization.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is a challenge I think all association executives face, is the constant changing of your volunteer leaders.
Yep.
Every year here at CCA, and I'm sure many associations are the same, we have a new president. We have 1-year terms. Thankfully, we have a progression that, our board members are on the board for a number of years, and then they work their way through up through the chairs. So, I think that progression for your volunteer leaders is critically important so that they have some time to understand the culture of the organization, and they have some history as to where we've been and where we're going. But at the same time, every association president has their own style. Yep. And their own things that they want to get accomplished. So I think that respecting their position as president, again, it's not our association, right? It's their association. As president, I think if they feel that they are being heard and listened to, that they quickly become more comfortable in their positions.
Sure.
I think that if you put a president or a volunteer leader in a position where they don't feel like they have a voice, then they might be more likely to assert themselves in a way that could be less than productive. But if they feel like they're comfortable where they sit, and the relationship of the executive director and president is clearly spelled out, it's usually a pretty smooth transition.
Yeah, great term. You said it so eloquently and so kind. Assert themselves in places where it would be not so productive. I think we could all say that in a different way. But on that note, Tony, I remember when I started realizing that my role in quote unquote recruiting volunteer leadership made life better for the association and for me as well. Have you done that over the years? Have you had your eyes open for people that are on committees or that have attended an event? And have you kind of cultivated them and recruited them to get involved in leadership?
Always, Bob. And I think that's a great point for the listeners, that as an association executive, you've got to always be on the lookout for potential new board members, potential leaders. That's just a constant thing that we are doing. You look for folks who are really active on committees, who work their way up into committee chairs, who have shown the interest and the ability to really, digest what we're doing here, and who are supportive of the association and want to help. So it's we're always on the lookout for those folks, and thankfully, there's been a good number of them that come up if you give them the opportunities to do that.
Sure. I either heard it or read it someplace that somebody said good leadership attracts good leadership and bad leadership attracts bad leadership. And it's so true, right? Because if you've got a good team of officers, then, a young and up and comer is going to look at that organization and say, I want to be part of that. Or quite the contrary, right? Why would I get involved in that group? They're out of their minds and they're doing crazy things. So, yeah, that recruitment piece is definitely a critical part. Tony, I wanted to ask you also, as we wrap up here, share with your audience today, if you don't mind, some of your personal habits or tools that you've developed over the years that have attributed to your success. And I'm talking things like reading or exercising or, time management tools or spiritual or, family, friends, hiking, whatever. What could you share with our audience today that could be some tidbits that could help them in their day-to-day life, particularly in these very, very challenging times?
Sure. Yeah. And I think, it's more important now than ever to talk about, how to disconnect and how to make sure that you have work-life balance. Work-life balance has been talked about for decades, but in a lot of ways, it seems like it's becoming harder and harder to disconnect. I mean, the job of an association executive can really take over your life. And then with the addition of technology, with our smartphones, we're accessible 24/7. You're checking your email all the time. Most board members have your cell phone number, and they can text you or they can call you. So it's more important now than ever to be very deliberate as an association executive to disconnect once in a while. And it's okay. It's okay not to be available. It's okay not to answer that email that you happen to notice at 8 p.m. or a text or a phone call. Let the phone call go to voicemail and answer it tomorrow. There's really nothing wrong. There's not only nothing wrong with that. There's actually a lot of things really important about doing that, about protecting your free time and reserving some time for yourself, for your family, for the things that you enjoy and whatever they may be. For me, my wife and I are very deliberate about taking time to work out. Every day we do, some kind of exercise, taking time on the weekends to get outside and hike and get fresh air, go out to dinner, be with friends. I think, everyone's got their thing that they enjoy doing, but whatever that thing is that's not work, take the time to do it and disconnect for a little while, because it is so important to your mental health and your physical health. And you'll be a better association executive in the long run if you take the time to take care of yourself.
And Tony, do you set that example with your team, your staff?
I try to. I absolutely will definitely share with them, the importance of taking time to yourself for whatever it may be, and give them the time and the space to do that. Just give them a little bit of time and a little bit of space. And, we're all in demanding jobs, and we've got a lot of demands on our time. So, I think that making sure that the staff takes the time to take care of themselves as well is just as equally important.
Good points. All right, Tony, so I'm going to hit you with something that we didn't talk about, so I'm going to catch you off guard a little bit. So we're down at the convention center. There's 2,000 people at a dinner that the Colorado Contractors Association has organized to honor Tony Milo as their executive director, and I have the honor of making some comments. What would Tony? This isn't a eulogy, so this isn't going to be a funeral. But what would you like to hear people say about Tony Milo and his, whether as a person, as a spouse, as a brother, a sister, a father, a friend, an executive director? What are just a couple of things that come to mind?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough one.
I did catch it. Well, you're a humble guy. I know that for a fact, so I'm not worried about what you're going to do here.
Well, and not saying this to prove my humility, but I will say that I've been lucky, very, very lucky, to be hired by an association that has a rich tradition. I mean, CCA has been around for 88 years, and they've been effective for, all of that time. So there's been decades of leaders and tradition that make this organization great and make it effective. And, I think that hopefully people would say, the folks from the association would say about me that, I fit in well to the history of this association and to the culture, and that I was able to assimilate into it and respect the folks who came before me, and try to lay the groundwork for the people who will come after me. Because I think all of us, as association executives, whether you are in a longstanding association like CCA, or you're in a newer association, you're only going to be as good as the people that are around you, and you've got to have a healthy amount of respect for those folks. And it's never one person, making anything happen in an association. It's a group. It's building coalitions. It's building teams. And I would hope that folks would say that I fit in well, and I was a good team player, and help move the ball forward a little bit for the industry.
Nice. Well, a humble answer from a humble gentleman, but I can tell you, Tony, you do such a great job, and you set such a great example for so many people, and it's just been an honor to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon. And anything you want to close with, or any other thoughts? You don't have to, but I just thought I'd give you an opportunity.
Gosh, no, I can't really think of anything else. I think that your questions were really spot on, and we covered a lot of ground. But appreciate the time and the opportunity to share with your listeners.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Tony Milo with the Colorado Contractors Association. And again, Tony, thank you for your time. I want to remind everybody that we're producing right about 2 to 3 podcasts a month. So when they're complete, we will post them on the CSAE website. And so I encourage you to just keep checking back. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you will continue to watch for more activities from the Colorado Society of Association Executives.